Good morning. My name is Cynthia Hoven, and I am so happy to welcome you again to these classes of eurythmy as a personal practice. This is the fifth of 5 classes on the series that we're doing, the soul, the body, and reincarnation. And it is, in fact, the 10th in the whole series of classes that I've been doing since January, exploring life after death and our journey leaving our body and discovering that our spirit still exists after death, has a home, and returns to earth in this constant process of evolution towards our godliness. So I welcome you to this very much. I understand that we might have 1 or 2 new people in the class today. If you have missed any of the previous classes, you will get the links afterwards. And definitely, I advise that you go through all of the links, all of the lessons to build up your strengths to be able to keep up with what we're doing today. And for those of you who are on this journey, building the process, I look forward today to bringing the content of this lesson to its culmination today, so that you'll be able to have a little practice built around the sensation of going through the Zodiac, coming to birth, and then remembering in poetic form what it is that we're doing as incarnated people. And I'll take a moment already now to let you know that when we come back after an Easter break, we're going to revisit in a higher and better level the teachings on the planets, all of the vowels, all of the colors, all of the qualities of the planet. So you can look forward to doing that with me after Easter, starting sometime in April. So let's begin. In beginning, let's refresh ourselves, as always, on our ideals of what we're doing when we do eurythmy. You are a spirit. We are all spirits. And the spirit is living inside the body, ensouling it, enlivening it, and living inside this physical sheath. A friend of mine called it, we're each living in a cave of sorts, and we walk around peering out of our caves all day long. But as a spiritual student, we become very active in spiritualizing this body that we live in. To make it even more interesting, we have this picture in eurythmy. We teach the physical body how to move according to these laws of lightness of the etheric body. We teach the etheric body how to respond to the astral body, to live in complete soul-filled movements. We teach the astral body how to be under the loving command of your ego presence. And we teach the ego to always offer itself in service to the spiritual world. So with that as an imagination, let's start with the eurythmy meditation. I'll speak it again as we've done each week. And this is one thing that you can do using your own voice at home as well. So if you like, you can speak with me. I seek within me creative forces working, creative powers living. The heavy weight of earth tells me through the word of my feet. The forming power of the air tells me through the singing of my hands, and the strength of heaven's light tells me through the thinking of my head how the great world in the human being speaks, sings, and thinks. As I drop my arms, I become aware of the sacredness of embodiment. And with that as an inspiration, I begin the peace exercise. Standing quietly, aware of self, I feel the stars above my head, the earth beneath my feet. I feel I am light, connecting heaven and earth. Spreading my arms to the side, I connect to the world of nature, but that's also to these few feet above the earth. I'm connecting to all the human hearts in the world. Those filled with joy and those filled with sorrow, I bear them. And I'm aware of the front space and the back space, the world of the senses and the spirit. Feel yourself using your body for your spiritual presence. And we begin. We go down into gravity and acknowledge body strength. Using a different kind of inner imagination and muscles, we feel lightness, weightlessness. I feel the distance of the stars above my head, drawn upwards like a plant. And then I spread my arms wide to the sides, right and left. Feel connected to the world. Turn my attention into the front space, going forward. The world of the senses fills us with sense impressions. And yet behind us, there's always a different kind of sensation, the invisible world. Inside my heart, I bear an image of the whole world. And now I remind myself the world, I'm living in a world of etheric energy, not just empty physical space. So as I go down, I move through this living world of space, even where the plants are. And I can compare that to the feeling of moving through water as I move through the air. There's a certain density in the etheric space, open wide. That helps me to move my arms at the right speed. I feel that the air is holding my arms. And this third time, as we've done so many times before, your hands are the hands of the peacemaker. As you go down through the living space, you feel, may peace be below me. May peace be above me. May peace be all around me. May peace be before me. May peace be behind me. And may peace be within me. Remembering the sense of self inside the cave, inside the body, inside the temple, you acknowledge forever that this heart is responsible for how you show up in the world. May it be filled with peace. And from here, we remember our opening and closing exercise. We feel, I am in God, and God is in me. Be deeply introspective here. Make your feeling go all the way to the inside of yourself. And from inside, this candle flame of your love opens wide, rekindles itself in spirit, and comes back in. In me is God. I am in God, and God is in me. And now let's do that with a little bit of walking. I'll start at the back of the room, and I'll start with opening my arms. And let's take a few steps forward. In me is God. Now, before you go back, remember you move really differently as you go into the backspace. You have to be able to see with the eyes in the back of your head, the eyes in the back of your heart. And then as you come forward, you can use your front eyes, but you've also got eyes in the front of your hands and your arms. You see the world through your body. Going backwards, you see the world with your back. I am in God. God is in me. I am in God. Feel your back space. Feel the front space. God is in me. Rest. And now let's give some good attention to our feet with our threefold walking practice. Light above your head. You take this star energy through yourself as you walk forwards. 4 steps in this limited space. If you've got more, that's great. Lift, carry, place, lift, impulse, carry through, completion, lift, carry, place, lift, carry. Remember to always touch with the ball of the foot first. Lift, carry the ball of the foot and roll down, place. Beautiful breathing. Lift, carry, place, lift, carry, and place. And now I'd like to do an exercise that we've done once in this series, although we've done it a couple times in other series, the series of breathing back and forth, but beginning gradually taking more and more steps with each movement. We're going to do first 1 step, then 2, 3, 4, and 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me build it up to be sure that you're understanding it with me. We prepare by making 1 big movement with the arms. 1 big movement. And try that again. Want to be sure you're breathing, moving through living space. Feel a little resistance against your arms. Front space. Before you go back, check that you've got your back space. You see the space behind you. Front space, engaged. Back space, looking into the invisible. Front space and back space. Now we're going to integrate that with stepping. Put 1 foot in front of the other. I happen to have my right foot in front. And match that 1 step with 1 big movement. 1, and then 1 step onto the back foot. This time we're going to take 2 steps. A step onto the front foot and onto the back. But those steps are a little quicker than the single step was. 1, 2. Next we'll take 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. And 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back steps. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2. Front space. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 3. Slowing down. 1, 2, 3. Back space. 2 steps slower. 2, 2, 1. And back to the original tempo. 1, 1. I hope you noticed that the arms are always doing the same tempo, but the feet need to get quicker and quicker. That changes your breathing. And the reason I love to bring this to you is so that you practice this agility with your feet. Our original threefold walking practice is very slow and stately and incredibly harmonizing. But of course, we seldom move that fast in our eurythmy practice, and we need to go more quickly. So this foot is the beginning of the challenge for going more quickly. And embedded in the challenge is the work to be sure that you're still touching with your toes first and getting your heels on the ground, even at quick tempos. So take a look here. Even when I go this fast, I touch with the toes first and get the heel down on the ground. So what I would like you to try to develop as you do this, or try to avoid going fast and walking with your heels first. And good friends, I can't tell you in live classes, no matter how many times I say, please step with your toes first. Most people struggle to remember that. Something about our human habits are so strong that even though I tell people, take care to be aware of your feet, most people haven't developed as beginners the ability to talk to their feet that strongly. So that's your assignment. Be sure that you're touching with the toes first as you go forward. Otherwise, let me show you how awkward it is. If you touch with the toes first, you're really bouncing out of your hips. And we try to get this nice, smooth walking. Yeah. But I also equally don't want you to step on your toes. And you go bouncing. Not that. We're looking for this glide. So let's try again. Start out with one slow step. One step forward. One step back. 2 steps. 1, 2, 2, 1. 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2 steps. 1, 2, 2, 1, and 1 beautiful step. 1 and 1. And rest. Thank you. I hope you did well. I hope you could follow your way through that. Let's build upon that now. Let's use that as we do our contraction and expansion exercise, taking 3 or 4 steps forwards. And you've done this with me before. Let's see if you are really stepping with the toes first as we contract. We start in preparation big. I hope you've learned by now that in eurythmy, you can go right through your fingertips. Your body is so much bigger than the room that you're standing in. And then you wrap all that space around you as you come forward, toes first. And now backwards, going right through your fingertips, touching stars. But you see how easy it is. You don't need to overstretch. You just allow yourself to be as large as the sky. And coming in again. In me is God. I am in God. In me is God. Each step is beautiful. I am in God. Again, down below, you have one kind of sensation going. In your hands, another sensation, and our job is to integrate our thinking, our feeling, and our willing, our meaning, our feeling, and our expression. In me is God. I am in God. And rest with your feet together. Beautiful. All right. Now I'd like to continue working with this expressivity of the feet and meaningful movements. And I'd like to do with you a spiral, which is, as you know, part of our poem. I'm going to choose to do this spiral in a way like as we do it in the poem. So I start at the back of my room. I'm going to spiral forwards to my left, around and end in the center of the circle. Now, to be sure that you're adequately prepared, from where you are right now, point to the place where your spiral is going to end, right there. Mine is about 2 or 3 feet in front of me. And then, again, using your hand, I'll use my other hand, draw your form. You will go around, you go forwards, you go around that point and end in the center. And then you're going to unspiral and come back home again. All right? Once again, in doing this, you are inscribing the place, inscribing the form into your room and back again on spiral. And this practice of inscribing the form before you move, it is essential in eurythmy. Now, as you did that, you kind of imagine the form on the floor, I expect. Now, instead of drawing it down there, stand straight and draw the form out of your heart, meaning higher up, a few feet away from the form, from the floor. Draw the form at your heart level, because it's your heart that's going to go to that place, the center of your spiral, and it's your heart that will unwind. Your feeling is going to have to travel there and become smaller and smaller and intimate, and then unspiral. I hope that was well explained. As I've always said, your feet carry your heart, and you practice that in life, but in eurythmy, it becomes your art. Are you ready? I'm going to my left. And so once again, my movement will be different than yours. We have to mirror. You go to your left as well, please. And walk around, forward, coming into your goal, to your center, to your core. Linger and walk out again, following this form of your heart that you already drew in space. Now you're back, you're out. Let's go in again. A metaphor or an artistic presentation of being born. Going in, becoming quiet. Going out, becoming freed. Becoming limited, becoming small. Entering a body, if your metaphor is getting born. Leaving the body at death, or Also at night as you sleep. Yeah. And again, your heart leads you, and your heart comes to its home, to its center, and your heart is freed of the body or liberated. It's all very easy. And remember, the whole time you're touching in this way with the front of your foot first, telling the story to the floor. Let's add the arms to that. Lift your arms wide. You touch the whole star, the whole sky. Feel your movement beyond your hands. And now as you come in, bit by bit, but very smoothly, your hands come into your heart. And when you take your last step, you've arrived. And when you unwind, bit by bit by bit, you grow and grow and grow. Even as way down there on the floor, your feet are talking to the earth. And bring it in again. Smooth movements with your feet and your hands. As you inscribe your movement in the etheric room that you're standing in, unspiral. Spiral in. Out. Out. What have we got going here? You can keep your hands up. We'll move in a second. With your hands, you're practicing getting smaller. With your feet, you're talking to the earth. With your head, with your mind, you have the thought of birth, being born, coming into a body. You're thinking it with your head. You're feeling it with your arms. You're doing it with your feet. You're thinking it, you're feeling it, and you're doing it. This is the eurythmy practice. And rest. And so in a moment, when we pick up the whole practice, we'll be doing that with the verse of poetry. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. We land at that core spot. Then we unspiral, the soul that rises with us, our life star. And that brings us back to this point where we're back in the star space. And then we begin the next line of the form. Hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. Do you remember that form? I'd like to work on that now in the same way that we experience really walking this path with our feet, gliding, doing threefold walking to the front of the room. And then the next form takes us back to here, our ending spot. Let me show you the form once more, just to be sure. You're standing at the back of the room, and you're going to do, this is what we've just done. This is the back of the room. You're going to go forwards. You're going to go to your right, to your left, and make a little curve here at the top. And then just a small curve. Then come these form. We're going to deliberately leave these out for a moment and do the last form, which is unspiral. You see, it's like this. We're unspiraling. And then we're going all the way to the back of the room and ending with a small curve back there. And in fact, it's not just unspiraling because we're going to go in the opposite direction. So the whole form is like a figure 8. So let's see if you can do that. Maybe I'll hold this back here for a moment. From where you are right now, I'll put it down. I think it's better that way. From where you are right now, in the back of the room, you're going to do an S form up to the front of the room. Point where you're going to land, please. And then see the shape of an S that gets you up to the top. And then remember that you've got a little tiny loop around that top at the front. Do you see that? You're at the bottom of the S. You're going to go first to your right and then to your left. You're at the point in the front, but you overshoot it a little bit and then curve around it. Yeah, again, you go to your right and to the left, around that point and spiral. Okay, again, to the right, to the left, spiral. Again, you will go that way. And then for the next form, you're going to, from there in the front, give yourself patience for a second, because you'll have to really think with me as you do this. From that point in front, go to the left and then forward. Did you get that? Then the rest is easy. And then make an opposite S coming back here. And a curve. Again, from the beginning, there's your goal, the right, to the left, and a curve. And then from the top, curve to the left. Now you go to your right, to your left, and then curve back here. Okay, let's walk that form. Remember to place it at the height of your heart, not on the floor. That's your goal. Hath had elsewhere its setting. Now you're going to curve around your point in front, remember? Cometh from afar. And then as you finish, you're going to go to your left and forwards, unspiral, make your circle, make your curve, and then back and back and back and back and back, feeling your back space in the heavenly realms. Okay, a couple more times. From back here, you're headed there. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. And then, trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Okay, from the beginning of the form, start with your arms large. We start with our spiral. Your heart is going into birth, if you will, into your body. Your feet tell the story. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. Now you unspiral. The soul that rises with us, our life's star. Go, you're headed to that point in front of you. Go to your right, hath had elsewhere, go to your left, its setting. Now the little loop in the front, and cometh from afar. Now we've got these two lines that we'll pick up in a minute, not in utter nakedness, not in entire forgetfulness. Now you go to your left forward, trailing to your right backwards, keep going, big S form, trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. And you've opened up to the backspace. So one of the things that you're getting in this poem is the difference between moving into being born, moving into a body, or discovering how to move backwards with the feeling of freedom and release. Again, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, continue in your S form, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. And poetically, this cometh from afar means even though you're in a body, you remember where you come from. This is an opening movement. This is really a eurythmy experience. I'm coming from afar. Even though I'm in the front of my form, I remember the backspace. All right, let's do that not form, not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness. And here we go with the last form. Start forwards to your left, but trailing clouds of glory do we come. Feel your backspace, very enlivened from God. Feel your backspace, who is our home. I hope you did it. You found that. That's the accomplishment of this poem, to remember the difference between being in your front space and being in your back space, from speaking about being in the body or being in the spiritual world, or also how when we are in our body, we can remember our spirit. Again, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us. Open your backspace, our life star. And now let your star become dimmer, hath had elsewhere its setting. But you remember it, and cometh from where? Oh yeah, cometh from afar. Not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness, but, now this is the wonderful line that says, you have clouds of glory, trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. All right. If you've got this now, let's turn our attention to doing the sound gestures with this poem. I'd like to begin with the sound, with creating with you the gesture for the word God. And in the English language, also in German, God begins with this G sound. I'd like you to explore that with me for a minute. You can even put your hands on your throat and feel G. Feel the tension that your throat makes. G. You have to push from somewhere deep down in the back of your throat, which corresponds to your deep will. G. You have to start from way back there. G. to make this g sound. Why? What wisdom has put that in the word God? It's as if we have to exert ourselves to be able to get beyond our limitations to see God, especially in our present time. This is our language's approach to God. So here is the G. You might remember it comes from Sagittarius. I start here, and it reminds me of here, the preparation for the G. I do it out of the power of my upper arms, and I open myself, pushing my blindnesses, my limitations aside until I get just this far, and I feel, oh, God, I can see now. My vision has been cleared. Do that here. I am normal, doing my everyday life, but I remember to look. God. Again, from God. And then the word God opens into an ah sound. It's a little bit of an imperfect ah. So in English, we write it as an O, but we don't say God, we say God. So a little bit of a rounded ah, God. From, open yourself to wonder, ah. And at the end, there's a little D, as if I'm pointing. Anywhere I point, I will find God. This is a very light, special kind of D sound. God. Whenever I touch and point something etherically, I have a little D. From God. Who is our home? There's a nice O there. God, who is our home. Trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. And make sure you're very much aware of your backspace when you do this O. It's a picture of fulfillment when you feel it as open completely to your sources. Thank you. Let's do now the trailing clouds of glory using the sound L. You remember we worked at the L a little bit extra last week. Let's build it up one more time. We start always the L here at the midline, and we get to go down into gravity and raise our arms, lifting into the light-filled space and unfolding. A trailing L. And again. All right. So this line of poetry, trailing clouds of glory, has so many wonderful sounds in it. But I chose, for the sake of this simplified learning experience, doing these 3 L's that show up in these words, trailing clouds of glory. That's what to give your attention to. Although artistically, we might do a lot more like clouds of glory. But we'll reduce it to just doing 3 L's that grow in majesty. You ready? L, a little L for the first one, trailing. The next one larger, clouds. The third one really jubilant, clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Again. Clouds of glory do we come from God, full of wonder we are, who is our home. All right. Let's work our way backwards through the poem. Before that, we had the line, not in utter nakedness and not in entire forgetfulness. And you remember we did an O behind the back. You remember we worked this extensively last week. We are going back on the right side of the body, which is in eurythmy, the archetypal expression for negation. So we go not, hand and foot together, not in utter nakedness and not in entire forgetfulness. One more time, and we can use both hands, but the right side is the dominant expression here. Right hand and foot, not in utter nakedness. There's your A. And not an entire forgetfulness. And then you'll remember we also did forgetfulness and drop the head, which means I don't understand anything. Not in utter nakedness and not an entire, drop the head and make the O, forgetfulness. Now you can lift your head back up again to get ready for the L's, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Let's continue to work our way backwards. The line before this was, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. And once again here, we minimize the number of sounds we had, and we use the sound S, hath had elsewhere its setting. We use the S, and we let this feeling as if our life's star is being extinguished with this S. Remember how we will have just done the word cometh from afar, and now from above our head, we're going to let the star sink, fall to the earth with the S. Had elsewhere its setting, and then this last triumphant sound of that line, cometh from afar. Essentially inside you feel, I remember. Even though my star has set, I remember. Again, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness, but railing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. All right, we are so close to having worked through all the sounds again. Let's jump back to the beginning of the poem and remember our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. Be our birth. Now we do an L. A sleepy L is but a sleep and a forgetting. Drop your head. And now, the soul that rises with us, the soul that rises with us. And now we're going to let this big S soar upwards. Our life's star. Good. Hope you remember that from last week. Our birth. And you all remember how we do the sound B for the experience of birth. Our birth is but a sleep. Let that L be like an enchantment that's woven upon you. And a forgetting. Drop your head. And now, the soul. Now, this is the journey of the child becoming an adult. The soul that rises with us. Our life's star hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh. Now this moment of victorious remembering cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. All right, let's weave it together. We'll do this a couple of times. Here you are in the back of your room. Notice what we're doing here, weaving together the meaning of the poem and the meaning of the sculptural sounds that we're doing. So we're putting meaningful sounds, not just dance sounds on this, sculptural sounds of language, weaving that with the feeling that accompanies them and taking it into the will, speaking it with our feet. Here we go. Ugh. You're thinking about birth as you spiral in. Our birth. Here's a spell of enchantment, is but a sleep. And now we go back into the place of negation and of forgetting. And now the beginning. You tell the story of where you come from, the soul that rises with us. Our lives, here's an S and a T. Our life star hath had, the star disappears, elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness, but go forward to your left, growing, trailing clouds of glory do we come. Now here's the little circle in the back, from God, who is our home. Again, I hope you discovered the magic. Repetition is such a satisfying thing in eurythmy as it becomes better and better. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness, and not an entire forgetfulness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Yes. Does it get better with repetition? Now remember, what I want to do then as the next step on this is that from this culmination, God who is our home, we add the practice of, in me is God, I am in God, with this contraction expansion. As you breathe towards the center of your spiral, straight line in, me is God, I am in God, 3 times, culminating then by coming into the inside and doing, I think, I seek within me creative forces working, creative powers living. My gift to you with this is that you feel, even when I'm in my body, I'm going to remember these creative forces in me. And then finally, for the ultimate part of it, we will do the hallelujah with this image. I know myself to be a spirit being. I have the cosmic creative forces in me. And in doing the hallelujah, I'm spiritually active on the earth. So that's the entire set now, except for the prelude, which you remember, going around the zodiac. So if we return back to the zodiac here and do the entire thing, we'll be able to go through it 3 times. Are you ready for the big journey? Just time for that. So you'll remember, on the earth, we are surrounded at all times by the spiritual world. At night, we leave our bodies. The bodies stay healthy. The life body is tended to here on the earth, keeps our physical body alive, but our consciousness disappears. And we learn that it goes into the realm that we were in before we were born. But because we don't have sense organs, we can't feel it. Even dreams are not an objective sensing of that spiritual space. But that spiritual space is the realm where the planets live, not just as balls in the sky, but the planets as ball spheres, like nesting eggs of beings and consciousnesses. That's what we'll be practicing in our next webinar series. These beings of the planets, beyond them, the beings of the stars beyond that, are the unlimited spiritual beings. Much more to learn about all that, right? And when we trace out the signs, the stars of the zodiac that surround us, our earth, we learn, we remember the formative forces that made us. So we begin, as you remember, over here on the right-hand side, the sign of Aries. And from Aries, we got the 4th, which is the spring sign. You remember why we're doing that. We have a whole circle of 360 degrees, 12 signs of the zodiac. And from each of them, we received a gift, as if from fairy godmothers, only infinitely more powerful than those fairy godmothers were. And they gave us many gifts, including the gifts of different ways of thinking, different philosophies, different senses, but also the gifts of our body. So we remember that each one of these consonants spoke to us, gave us their gift in the form of formative forces, which now are reflected in us in our speech. That was a big sentence, but Let me say it again. They each give us their gifts in the form of formative forces, and these are reflected in the consonants of our language. So whenever we use a consonant, all the time, totally unconsciously, we're pulling in cosmic forces and replicating them through the gift of speech. So let's begin over here at Aries, as we've done in each week in this course. In Aries, we were given the head through wa and wa. We step to the next position on the circle. Taurus spoke to us through R, gave us the throat. Gemini spoke to us through ha and split us into right and left sides. Cancer spoke to us through, gave us the gift of air, the lungs. And Leo spoke to us through T, setting up the circulation of the blood. Virgo spoke to us through, gave us the inner body, the metabolism. Libra spoke to us through, gave us the hips. Scorpio spoke to us through, gave us our reproductive organs. Sagittarius spoke to us through G, giving us the deep will of the thighs. Capricorn gave us the knees and all the joints, L. Aquarius gave us the lower arms and the shins and the calves, M. Pisces spoke to us through N, giving us our hands and our feet. And from here, we will begin our spiral of birth. I go back around the constellations, feeling, I gathered them up, but I forgot our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star. We feel ourselves mindful again of the planets and the constellations, have had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, open to those stars again. Now your decision, not in utter nakedness, no, not in entire forgetfulness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. And now, as if with a resolution, come forwards to that heart space again. Whether I'm in the body or in spirit, I remember I am in God, God is in me. I am in God, God is in me. I am in God, God is in me. As long as I'm on the earth, I resolve to remember I seek within me creative forces working, creative powers living. The heavy weight of earth tells me through the word of my feet. The forming power of the air tells me through the singing of my hands. The strength of heaven's light tells me through the thinking of my head how the great world in the human being speaks, think, think. And then, not yet this time, but before we end our class today, from this place, we'll do the Hallelujah with our commitments to being peacemakers. All right, let's go back. We can do this 2 more times. Gaining strength with each repetition. From here, you're connecting to remembering beings so much mightier than you are. And we do our best to acknowledge Aries forces, Wa and Va. Taurus forces, give us the throat. Gemini, give us 2 sides. Cancer, that's right at the back of the room, gives you the lungs, your breathing. Leo gives you the heart. Virgo gives you the inner body. Libra gives you the hips. Scorpio gives you the reproductive organs. Sagittarius gives you the deep will of the thighs. Capricorn, wonderful L, gives you the knees, center front of your room, of your form. M, Aquarius gives you the lower legs and the lower arms. N, Pisces gives you the hands and feet. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness, and not in entire forgetfulness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. In me is God. I am in God. In me is God. I am in God. In me is God. I seek within me creative forces working, creative powers living. The heavy weight of earth tells me through the word of my feet. The forming power of the air tells me through the singing of my hands. The strength of heaven's light tells me through the thinking of my head how the great world in the human being speaks, sings, and thinks. One more time. Aries gives you the head. Oh, right around the head with the feet. Taurus. Gemini. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, and I will be born. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in utter nakedness. That's a, sorry, here. And not an entire forgetfulness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. And I resolve to remember that. In me is God. God is in me. I am in God. In me is God. And I am in God. In me is God. I seek within me creative forces working, creative powers living. The heavy weight of earth tells me through the word of my feet. The forming power of the air tells me through the singing of my hands. The strength of heaven's light tells me through the thinking of my head how the great world in the human being speaks, sings, and thinks. And now from all the places around the world where we are, let's unite for a hallelujah of thanksgiving and of peace. We fold our arms. Mindful that this is a gift to the world. And together we open ourselves to the Spirit. Through you, spirit forces are brought to the earth in the sound ah. And then we cleanse the land. At the knee level, in the metabolism, we aspire to cleanse the hearts of humanity, the words, the thoughts. Once more, may all of this life be cleansed. Mindful of the thresholds we stand at. We resolve to do our spiritual work. Cleansing our ability to think in spirit, to hear in spirit, to be in spirit. We gather our forces from all around the world. We lift our hands. We are rooted in heaven and on earth. From the Spirit, we stand uniting heaven and earth. Our hearts grow strong and we offer our whole selves to our creators. And with that, we close today's class. I'll take a couple of questions if there are some, but just let me, first of all, thank all of you so much for being part of this journey. And I hope that these poems enlivened and enlightened you. One of you, actually, your so-called classmate in India, sent me a video of her doing the poem, very short video, but that was kind of precious to me to see how this is living in people. Other people might not have felt such a strong connection to doing the poetry. You might prefer the more archetypal personal practice work, recognizing that dynamic. I'm getting ready next year to start back in September on the basics of building a personal practice. So we'll do those rod exercises again. It always is wonderful to do those Tuesday morning rod exercises and basic exercises, colors and so on. But even before that, as I said, there's going to be a 7-week course on the planets, the vowels, the colors in eurythmy. And even before that, we've got Easter coming. And many of you know that I send out in the week before Easter a study about the planets and their sacred imprinting on the festival the week before Easter. So you can